Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. On the tonight's hazardous weather, still have that unending flood advisory going on there around the greater Fairbanks area. Flood warning there for the Taya River over the northern panhandle, and then a flood watch here starting actually tomorrow afternoon, Friday afternoon through Saturday for the Seward Peninsula on down the coastline there into the west central interior areas. That due to the incoming rain up to 1 to 2 inches or more forecast to fall across that area over the next couple of days. And satellite imagery, kind of a break to start with through here. We got a band of light rain coming southeastward there. Then a lot of moisture still back to the west-northwest across the Bering Strait and the St. Lawrence Island area, and then low pressure there in the Gulf of Alaska. That brought some pretty good easterly winds across the North Gulf areas, gusts 30 to 40 miles an hour Middleton Island earlier today, and that spreading some rain on up to the north, and then mostly cloudy across the southeast coast. Some showers earlier today over the northern areas there, and breaking out over Bristol Bay, temperatures rising in the lower 70s there this afternoon, and also some breakout of the clouds here, areas of the Kenai Peninsula right up into northern Cook Inlet, and a narrow band, kind of a break here over the interior, and that allowing some, where the sunshine broke out, some thunderstorms developing and being triggered this afternoon due to the temperatures rising in some areas up into toward the lower 70s. And on the chart today, there's that band of rain here from the Kenai Peninsula across Prince William Sound, all the way over across Yakutat, and then it kind of cuts off there over the northern panhandle. Mostly just clouds here over the central and northern areas, and then got a little more sunshine down to the south with temperatures rising into the mid to upper 60s. Showers ending over Kodiak today, mostly just moved off to the east there, a couple of showers back to the northwest, along with some clearing here, as I mentioned, over Bristol Bay, and partly to mostly cloudy for the peninsula there. Port Hayden had some showers around today. Other areas had some sunshine scattered around as well, and mostly cloudy out here over the Aleutians, but light winds, areas of fog, Pribilof Islands down toward Atka. And then farther out to the west, though, shimmy out here, saw a mostly sunny day today with light winds. Up to the north, had rainfall amounts as much as a third of an inch, pushing along that front there with that Uia airfield picking about a third of an inch of rain on down in toward the Brooks Range. And that's shifting eastward, and some light rain and fog along the eastern Arctic coast there with the interior ahead of this front seeing winds 10 to 20 miles an hour there with some higher gusts. Nuiqsut on the Arctic coast had westerlies gusting to 35 miles per hour, and otherwise not quite that high, but kind of gusty out in advance of that front. And also with the low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska, narrow ridge here right along the North Gulf Coast, and winds at the International Airport in Anchorage gusted up to about 35 miles an hour this afternoon, but much lighter on the east side of town. but pretty brisk winds through the arm there coming southeast across the western Anchorage area. And that'll continue through the evening, gradually diminishing overnight tonight. Otherwise, for the forecast for tonight, that low pulls off to the east and the gradient relaxes a little bit here up along the North Gulf Coast, especially on the west side there. Front edging southward. Look for that rain to push eastward there across the upper Yukon Valley, exiting the Brooks Range. Another trough brings some showers in to that area later on, and another trough reaching the northwest and central Arctic coast. A few light showers with that, nothing too terribly heavy, and then kind of a bigger area of light rain, fog, drizzle, probably some IFR here associated with that warm front. St. Lawrence Island right into the western areas there. Look for some showers over the northern southeast coast, otherwise mostly cloudy with just isolated chances on down to the south. Not much going on out over the Bering Sea, but all I could find was a weak trough, very weak, with maybe some areas of very light moisture and fog. Otherwise, light winds here over the southeast Bering, all the way out to the western Aleutians once again. Then picking up a little bit here over the northern Bering Sea, mostly out of the southwest, 10 to 20, some cases gusts 25 knots as you get up through St. Lawrence Island and through the Bering Strait. And the forecast for Friday, got westerly flow here coming across the Aleutian Range and the western Alaska Range, so look for a little more sunshine tomorrow over Cook Inlet on down toward Kodiak Island. Of course, warmer temperatures with that. The Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula as well. Otherwise, light winds, areas of clouds, fog for Bristol Bay, mostly staying off the coast there out over the ocean. No change for the Aleutians at all tomorrow. Light winds continue with variable clouds and patchy fog. Up along the Arctic coast there, just kind of a cloudy day, pretty dry for the most part, lingering showers here over the eastern North Slope and a little bit back to the west. This front now south of the mountains, so pretty good area of rain now from St. Lawrence Island eastward across that flood watch area there, Norton Sound, across the Seward Peninsula into the Yukon Delta, and back up across the central to the eastern interior areas. Copper River Basin, showers, scattered showers tomorrow afternoon, maybe some shower activity developing over the Chugach Mountains, the Talkeetnas, and just north of Prince William Sound in that area. Upper level trough finally swinging across the Panhandle, so showers or rain, pretty numerous showers, periods of rain, again heaviest over the central and northern southeast coast, tapering off down toward Dixon Entrance. High pressure back out over the Gulf of Alaska, so once that gets on through, maybe it'll dry out a little bit there for Saturday. And that's what it does. Weak high pressure off the coast there, more of a northwest flow now. The upper level trough off into Canada. Partly sunny, I'll call it for Saturday there. Not even mention showers. Same thing for the Copper River Basin, partly to mostly sunny right across south central Alaska. Again, afternoon showers still possible over the Chugach Mountains. There may be the Talkeetnas. This front actually coming southward here in the west and not so much to the north. They're actually retreating back as the upper level trough sharpens up and digs down this way, so the flow will become more southwesterly on Saturday. And looks like showers will be right up along the west side of the Alaska Range. At this point in time, mostly sunny for Kodiak, dry for the North Gulf Coast, and drying out back behind that from Dead Horse Prudhoe Bay all the way back into the Seward Peninsula, back into the partly sunny skies, hopefully there. Even St. Lawrence Island, those winds with the higher pressure building back here to the west and the low now in over the Yukon Delta, getting a little brisk again. Small craft advisories there for the through the strait across St. Lawrence Island, down across St. Matthew Island as well, and some pretty good southwesterlies in advance of that coming up into Kuskokwim Bay and probably on into the interior as well. Again, 10 to 20, maybe some gusts of 25 miles per hour ahead of that. Also some thunderstorm activity scattered to isolated here over the Tanana Valley along the leading edge of that frontal boundary and then back on up to the northeast. Out in the Aleutians, more clouds, low clouds, fog, drizzle. Not too bad on the winds though, 10 to 20 at the most in some areas there, but a lot of marginal conditions in IFR. Again with some clearing there on the southeast side of the Alaska Peninsula, maybe the central Aleutians as well. Temperatures across the southeast coast this afternoon. Upper 50s there along the coast at Port Alexander and Sitka, 61 Klawock and 66 over Wrangell, 62 at the state capital, 57 Yakutat, about the same in Cordova, 57 this afternoon in Whittier, 67 there at Kenai, 58 down at Homer, and 63 up in the valley there at Talkeetna. Lower to mid-60s for the Copper River Basin. These early to mid-afternoon temperatures, 60 at Northway, warmer up in toward the Fairbanks area, and on up to the north, 75 at Beaver this afternoon, otherwise in the upper 60s. Cooler back with more clouds there and a little bit more light rain. Bettles 59 degrees. I believe they had about a third of an inch of rain during the day today, and mid-50s all the way back to the west. Umiat 56, 59 New Wixit, 45 over at Kaktovik, 40 at Barrow, mid-40s down the coastline there, right on the north side of the Seward Peninsula, upper 40s for the St. Lawrence Island area. Temperatures ranged here over the southwest from 63 at McGrath to 59 at Bethel, 55 over at Hooper Bay, 59 also, or 59 at Macoriac, while Kaliganik there had 73 degrees. Otherwise, actually these temperatures, Dillingham and King Salmon, they rose into the 70s as well. Upper 50s to mid 60s for the peninsula, 50s everywhere else. And the lows for tonight, cooler back here to the northwest on up to the Arctic coast, 35 to 40-ish, and 40s here, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula. Lower to mid 50s over the Yukon Delta, northeastward up to the Yukon Flats area, and 40s and 50s all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, as well as the Panhandle there, 40s to lower 50s for the Aleutians and Bering Sea. Highs for tomorrow into the 50s out there on Alaska, may push up to 61, 60s for the peninsula, Bristol Bay, mid-60s, 60s to lower 70s possible here south central Alaska, especially the Susitna Valley, inland areas of the Kenai Peninsula, maybe some lower 70s still showing up there over the 40-mile country, mostly south of Eagle on down toward Tok, and 60s for the southeast coast. And for flying weather, start the day off mostly marginal there for the Panhandle, as well as the Gulf of Alaska, areas of up through the interior, and more widespread out here to the west across the deltas, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula, of course, with that band of moisture developing and pushing eastward, and also up along the western Arctic coast, IFR farther out to the west. And then for afternoon, that progresses a little bit up to the northeast there, but really no change out west. Marginal VFR, patchy areas IFR there, eastern Norton Sound near the Nulato Hills, but marginal stuff advancing eastward across the central interior. Marginal VFR, again, becoming VFR down to the south for the southeast coast there. Mostly VFR tomorrow, Kenai Peninsula, of course, Kodiak Island, back into the Alaska Peninsula, right up across south central Alaska. Passes Anatuva, occasionally marginal on the northern entrance, and that same forecast good for Adigan as well, otherwise VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, lower conditions on the western approaches of both those passes. Rainy, VFR becoming marginal throughout the day. And for windy, marginal VFR there. Isabel, same forecast. Mentasta, I believe, will be VFR. Any showers will be of the VFR variety for that pass. Tanita, VFR. Portage, IFR to start with. Just look for improving throughout the day to VFR conditions. Chilkoot and White, marginal. Looking at the freezing levels here, about 8,000 feet across southern Alaska into the Panhandle, and then warming up to 14,000 feet out over the western Bering and Aleutians, pretty typical for this time of year. And then with that colder air swinging into the northwest, we got 2,000 feet right down along the northwest coast over to about Barrow, and the 8,000 foot level progressing a little bit farther to the southeast as well. But again, the main push eventually will be southward and not so much into the eastern interior. For the icing threats tomorrow, above about 5,000 feet, light rime icing possible here, St. Lawrence Island, into the central interior, off to the northeast, where you have to get to about 7,000 feet or above to get into that. And still a chance of some icing there, mixed variety, above 9,000 feet for the central and northern southeast coast. On to the winds aloft jet stream here. We've got that upper low pulling across into Canada there, but the trough down across the Panhandle. Main jet south across the Queen Charlottes now, so look for the showers of precipitation to be on the decreasing side as a little bit higher pressure follows that in. Definitely drier conditions there, kind of a sharp trough right through here, so northeast winds of 50 across Kodiak Island. Light wind flow for the Aleutian southern Bering Sea. The only jet there across the northwest and north interior at about 95 knots from the west, turning southwest with that main upper low center far off to the northwest. 9,000 feet, we got a weak low here, still hanging just off the eastern North Gulf Coast. Pretty light westerlies, 15 there into the Panhandle. A band of pretty good winds comparatively, 25 to 30 knots here through the central interior areas, and then maybe up to 30 knots there out of the southwest for the central Arctic coast. Southwesterlies 20 to 25 here for the eastern Bering Sea on down across the Fox Islands, 15 to 20 farther out to the west. 3,000 feet, about the same flow pattern, 25 knot winds through here down across the Pribilofs into the southwest interior, 25 to 30 there along and north of the Alaska Range, which would mean the Tanana Valley there over toward Eagle. Much lighter to the south, much lighter to the north. Then they pick back up again along the Arctic coast at about 25 knots. The central Arctic coast, pretty light winds there for the Panhandle. And on to turbulence, maybe some isolated up there along the central Arctic coast and through the Bering Strait. St. Lawrence Island down to Nunivak Island, below about 4,000 feet. Light to isolated moderate chop there from the northern Bering Sea right up northeastward across the Tanana Valley into the central and southern upper Yukon Flats area. And after the break of Hangar Flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Seeing shapes in the stars. Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. Hey Dean, have you seen the Big Dipper this summer?
I have. After all, it's my favorite constellation.
Dean is laughing because he knows darn well that the Big Dipper is not a constellation.
I know. I just like messing with you, James. The Big Dipper is only part of a larger constellation called Ursa Major, or the Big Bear. So if it's not an official constellation, what do we call it?
We call it an asterism. An asterism is basically just a shape we see in the stars to help us find our way around. Think of it as an unofficial constellation.
And summertime is a great time to find many of the asterisms in the sky.
Exactly. We've got the summer triangle, the fishhook, and the teapot.
Let's show you. Okay, we have our sky set up for any night this week facing northwest after sunset. Now that we're into July, the sun sets really late, so use this as an excuse to stay up past your bedtime.
Definitely, because we want you to find your first asterism of the evening up in the northwestern sky. There it is, standing on its spoon, the Big Dipper. The formation of those 7 bright stars is unmistakable.
4 stars make the spoon of the Big Dipper, and 3 more make up the handle. Now, where's that big bear that'll turn my asterism into a constellation?
Aha, I see it now. Ursa Major, the Big Bear, takes up a lot of space in the sky. The Big Dipper is only the rear end and long tail of the bear, while other fainter stars mark his head and feet. Astronomers don't just stop there. To them, everything within this boundary, every star, every deep space object, is part of the constellation Ursa Major.
Wow, that's a big bear. Now we're facing east, and here you can find another huge asterism in the sky. I'll give you 2 hints. It's up all summer, and it's in the shape of a triangle. Yep, we call it the summer triangle. Who said astronomy was tough to follow?
Brightest and bluest of the 3 stars in the summer triangle is Vega. Down and to the left is Dehne, and way over to the right is Altair. Each of these stars belongs to its own constellation.
Vega is part of Lyra the Harp, whose stars make a little parallelogram. Deneb is the tail of Cygnus the Swan. Ooh, I can actually picture a swan in those stars. And Altair is the eagle eye of the constellation Aquila the Eagle.
So this asterism, the summer triangle, really incorporates 3 regions of 3 different constellations. Now let's face south and look low on the horizon for 2 more distinct asterisms.
Here we find the stars I most associate with summer, looking like the letter J or a big fishhook.
Add in the fainter stars around the fishhook and you'll see the constellation Scorpius the Scorpion. At the heart of the Scorpion, you'll find a red supergiant star called Antares. As an added special effect, Antares is often low in the southern sky and appears to flicker like a beating heart through the thicker atmosphere. The planets Mars and Saturn are also hanging around Scorpius this summer.
Now, to the left of the fishhook, you can find stars in the shape of a teapot. These stars are part of a larger constellation called Sagittarius the Archer. He's a centaur, half man, half horse, with his legs down below the horizon for most people in the U.S.
Other than the teapot, the remaining stars in Sagittarius are tough to find. But the asterism marks the centaur's body and outstretched bow and arrow. What's he aiming at?
Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, of course. Watch out, Scorpius! So, find your favorite asterism tonight, from the Big Dipper in the northwest
To the Summer Triangle High in the east.
to the fishhook in the south next to the teapot.
And it's all there when you keep looking up.
Welcome back. The sea ice analysis today, a little different from what it was on Monday. You can see the heavier pack ice farther to the north there in Barrow, also back to the northwest, as well as along the east side here. Still hugging the eastern coastline in there, good enough to keep seas out of the marine forecast. This area, though, kind of back down in toward the coast a little bit closer there. And over the next few days, really no big changes again in store. Everything just kind of oscillating around with general melt-off of conditions, slow melt-off. On to the marine forecast, west 20 for the south coast, south 10 to 15 on the north side. Lynn Canal southerlies at 20, but those will increase to 25 knots probably tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, south 15 for Stevens Passage, westerlies variable to west there for Clarence Strait. And then for Saturday, south 20 knots for Lynn Canal and Glacier Bay, west 15, northwest 20 for the remainder of the coast with those seas at 7 feet. Northwest up to 20 knots for Clarence Strait with 4-foot seas. And for the Cook Inlet waters tomorrow, small craft advisories, 25 knots, same thing for Shelikof Strait. A lot lighter winds in store for Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast. Into the Barren Islands, west 20 there for the east side of Kodiak Island. And for Saturday, winds come down a little bit, mostly for northern Cook Inlet. Otherwise, 20 to 25 knots here from the north areas right down across Shelikof Strait, with seas running 4 to 7 feet. Southwest 20 Kodiak Island. Otherwise, south to southwest 15 to 20 knots. North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, seas 4 to 6 feet. And for Bristol Bay, southwest at 20 tomorrow. And then down the coastline there, we've got southwesterlies there for the Alaska Peninsula at 15, becoming west as you get up towards Sitkinak. And then for Saturday, Sitkinak, westerlies at 20 knots to Castle Cape. Then it turns southwest, southwest 20 here, right up into Bristol Bay with 6-foot seas. And for the Western Aleutians tomorrow, still on the light wind regime out there, west at 15, picking up the southwest 20 here as you approach Adak. And then from there, all the way across Unalaska Island, southwesterlies 15 to 20 knots, 4 to 5-foot seas. And then the outlook for Saturday, westerlies 15 here from the Western Aleutians right up to about Adak. Then they kick up to 20 knots out of the southwest. And that pattern, again, extends all the way across the eastern Aleutians there, with those seas running 5 to 7 feet. For the southwest coast, small craft advisory, southwest 25 knots. Same thing right up across St. Lawrence Island and St. Matthew Island. Same forecast as well, 25 knots out of the southwest with seas there up to 8 feet. 20 knots for the Pribilofs, seas at about 6 feet. And the outlook for Sunday, again, that front trough kind of swings eastward a little bit there, so the northerlies return high pressure back out to the west up to 25 knots for St. Lawrence Island. down in across St. Matthew Island and to the west up to 30 knots, with those seas building to 8 feet. South here, farther south, the winds are southwest across the Pribilofs at 25. So small craft advisories out for Sunday for the islands there, right up in along the southwest coast there into Kuskokwim Bay with 7 to 9 foot seas. Eastern Arctic coast, westerlies 15 to 20 tomorrow. The central coast, that arrow is backwards. That should be westerly, not easterly there at about 15 or 20, and then 15 knot winds on down the coastline there, really all the way into the Bering Strait. Now for Saturday, from Wales to Cape Thompson, north winds 20 knots, seas 4 feet. Northwest here for the Cape Thompson, Cape Beaufort area, and westerlies 15 for the western coast and for the central eastern Beaufort Sea coastline. Southwest 10 to 15, but they get light and variable here over toward Demarcation Point. There are seas maybe up to 2 feet. 2 feet or less would about sum it up. And for tonight again, upper level trough, weak low in the Gulf here, keeping it showery. May probably increase them here as that thing starts to swing across to the east there, and showers back to the west diminishing. Few evening showers possible, winds starting to diminish, turning an arm, and western Anchorage area. Rain here through the interior, developing and spreading eastward along this frontal boundary, which tomorrow stays in about that same position right through here, east to west. Good band of precipitation with that out. And tomorrow afternoon, the flood watches kick in for the west central interior on out across the Seward Peninsula. And then looking at Saturday, first day of the weekend, that front drops southward here. Sharp front right through here, and small craft advisories for the Pribilofs. Rain, possibly heavy at times here over the southwest, extending to the northeast to the eastern Arctic coast. That's a look at the weather for tonight. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
From her rich and fertile valleys to the shores of her icy seas, from her fields and farms and shellfish beds and her many nurseries, for the finest of her flavor, for the freshest by far, choose the things Alaskans bring to the market where you are. Products that we're proud to call our own, and it's all Alaska grown.